Hi Sharon.
Hello.
Hello. Well, new album. It's been 4 years since your previous album,
Yeah.
Hydra. What has been? It's been 4 years. What has been the most important year in those 4 years?
One of the most important years.
Yeah.
Well, I think for me it was making my Indigo. And my Indigo is where my journey started also for Resist, the album for With Invitation. When I discovered I couldn't write for With Invitation at the time, I stopped writing for a certain while, and then when I did start writing again, something totally different came out. It was more indie pop kind of music, singer-songwriter stuff, and to understand where it came from, I had to really dig in my own personal life. And also making music for the first time that I never made before.
How come? Were you surprised? I mean,
I was very much surprised, yes, because this was music from my past, from the 80s that I grew up with, but also a lot of things that were happening now in the music, but also personal. So it was a mixture of old and new coming together, and it was just my personal journey that I had to go back to the 80s when I was growing up and coming back to 2017, 2018 that we are now. And I discovered that I really had to look differently at music again, because I didn't understand the scene that I had to describe myself, like what kind of music am I making now? I didn't have a clue. And then also looking at other bands who were more in the scene of what I was trying to do at that time, and learned from that music scene a lot. And I think that was the basis also for the new album of With Invitation.
Two questions. You said, well, I went back to the music of my youth. Why? How come? What drove you to that time?
Well, because I was in a personal, I had a little bit of personal crisis, I think. My dad got really sick, and I had a lot of conflicts and a lot of conversations with him about certain things, and it just took me back to when I was growing up and to deal with everything that was going on, and also in the here and now, that combination. I think it brought me back the memories, and also with memories always is connected to music, so I think I was inspired by that, by the fact that I was going back into my mind to how it used to be, and the things that inspired me at that time, and what was actually the soundtrack of my youth, more or less.
Yeah. And you said, well, you took a look at the bands that were more into that scene.
Yeah.
What bands are you talking about?
More a singer-songwriter kind of artist, but also Imagine Dragons, 21 Pilots, more alternative pop kind of things, but also things from the past like Kate Bush, but also Aha, you know, all the bands that I grew up with, and so it was and Chris Isaak, which was I was a huge fan of Chris Isaak as well. And a lot of country music that I grew up with as well. And also bands that I got to know through my parents, like the Eagles, Bruce Springsteen. So that kind of atmosphere and those kind of bands and artists really helped me make my Indigo, actually.
And how did, can you say, well, how did my Indigo and the bands that you just described, the artists, how did it music-wise crop into the new album of With Invitation?
Well, it was like I had to look differently to music again, because it was a new music style that I was making, and together also the production was very different. And I think we learned also, not just me, but also the producer, from how we produced that album, sounds and also new programs and also more urban stuff. And I think we took the urban elements to With Invitation, which we never had, and also the way of writing lyrics. It was more direct, less metaphorical, and less epic, but more, say it how you feel it, kind of way. And that was really something really new for me, and really well, how do you say that? Liberating.
Liberating for you. Yeah, because you started out with, I read that coming from the Hydra tour, you had a writer's block, which turned into My Indigo.
Yeah.
The personal journey that you went through with your father being ill, how hard was it?
It was pretty intense, yeah. Especially because we had a different view on how he should approach his illness, and I wanted him to go to the most specialized hospitals, and he was like, I'm here in a local hospital, and although it didn't go exactly how it was supposed to go in that hospital, he still was very loyal to the hospital, and I was like, please take a second opinion, stuff like that. But eventually I learned that I really had to let him go and let him do his own way of things and how he felt comfortable with it. It was also always thinking about my mom, like, okay, but this, the local hospital is very close by, she can visit me every day, and otherwise she has to drive for such a long time. Stupid things like that. So, but and eventually it's his journey and it is his life, and I had to let him go because we had too many fights about it, actually. And he was very positive. Well, I was always trying to warn him from the dangers of if he didn't react in time on how the process was going with his illness, and he was just always so full of confidence that he would make it and it would be okay, and he was trying to be the wise dad and try to be there for me. Well, I just wanted him to get better and just, I don't know, trying to help him take other decisions. Yeah.
Did he get better?
Eventually, when he was diagnosed, like, okay, we can't help you in the regional hospital anymore, we eventually went to a specialized hospital, but then it was already way too late, actually, and they did with immune therapy, they tried all kinds of things, and he was very unfortunate. Like one time, one of the immune therapies didn't work for him, because he didn't have the right DNA or something, and then when he had finally the right therapy with the right DNA, his kidneys were failing, and then he couldn't join the program and stuff like that. So that was like he had a lot of bad luck as well, and that was really sad.
And well, you told me prior to the interview that he passed away on the release date of My Indigo. Lyric-wise, what did you bring from My Indigo in this new Wooden Temptation album?
Well, I dedicated also one song to him on this album. He was a huge Wooden Temptation fan, so I wrote Supernova for him. It's like you and I talked about off the camera about energies and just wondering where energy goes. You're always hoping that that energy does go on, although it's not visible. I think there's more than meets the eye. I'm not a typical religious person. I never grew up with a religion, actually, but I'm a spiritual person. I believe there must be something. Maybe it's just hope. I don't know, but I'm still in conflict with myself, like what's science and what I'm hoping for, and you know.
And the way of writing lyrics, we discussed the music. The way of writing lyrics, how did My Indigo influence this album lyric-wise for you? The way you write your lyrics.
Well, what I learned from My Indigo is sometimes to be more direct, and I think I'm even more direct on the new Wooden Temptation album with certain songs than with the My Indigo. Some songs were very urban influenced and also very direct with a certain kind of slang kind of way of singing, and also just right in your face, just say how you feel. It's like there's just one line actually in Holy Ground. It's like it's been a while since I told you that I hate you. Well, I would have never written that in any album before. And I found it very liberating just to say sometimes what you really feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no more holding back now.
No, I found a new kind of fire, and not just me, but I think the rest of the band understands it just as well, because we're all in the same kind of age and phase in our lives. So it's a new kind of way of expressing yourself, and with some old elements that we still use. We're still cinematic and it's still big, but it's in a different new way of expressing yourself.
In hindsight, is it because, well, your first album was released 21 years ago?
Yeah.
In hindsight, did it need to happen? I mean, not happen what happened to you personally, but I mean, the new way of writing and songwriting, and if you look back on your previous album, say, well, we had to make a direction, or?
I think it's always about development. It's about personal growth. So I don't know if maybe if this would not have come on my path, something else might have come. And you know, I was already struggling with the fact that I had a very rough schedule with Hydra, that we toured a lot. So even if my dad might not have become sick, I might still had the same kind of development, but maybe in a different way. But I think the outcome might have been more or less the same.
Okay. Last question. The album is called Resist. Who came up with the album title, and what does it mean?
I came up with the album title. It's something that I've been talking a lot with my friends and Robert and the band members, and it's about the fact that it's about the fact that we are growing up in a digital age since our youth, actually. And at the time, we like technology, but there's also a dangerous side, I think, and that's something that, well, I never realized how big that could be, but the last few years I'm starting to realize it more and more. It's like, if you're always trackable and traceable on the internet, what kind of impact that can make if your country is not a democracy, and if people have other ideas about whatever you're thinking, is like minorities or religions, or if you're gay or not. You know, it's like it's you know, we're living in a democracy now, but things can always change, and in some countries it is different. So I was also thinking about, if this would be the Second World War, what would it do with the people that were oppressed at that time? And then I thought, okay, this good technology can also be used in a bad way if people want to, and that's how we got to the album title. Okay, it's like maybe it's time that we get laws for this kind of freedom on the internet for all companies and governments also, to know what is the thin line, what you cannot do. And so that was the thought experiment, and that started actually the whole theme for With Invitation, with Resist, and writing certain lyrics about it.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
You're most welcome.